welcome to the first Clangers pod.
Well, it's not actually the first. So this is the pilot. So it's a kind of a prequel, really. This is the one where we see if everything works, we can iron out all the errors. So if you are listening to this, you're very special.
I suppose we should sort of say what this is going to all be about. So the three of us all worked together on Auto Express in the late 1990s and early 2000s, which meant that we got to talk to all the people in the industry. We got to drive everything, and we developed a little bit of an obsession, I suppose, with all those cars.
We found ourselves saddled with enough retained information about those cars and all the stories in the industry that, you know, certainly in Craig's case, a strange obsession with buying these cars. Craig, I mean, how many cars do you currently own?
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you. I can tell you how many I've currently got on the road.
Is it in double figures?
I've got 24 cars currently on the road, which I really need to do something.
So that's currently taxed, yeah?
Let's not go with, along with how much that costs. And then there are others in storage. But chances are, if you name a mundane or ordinary car from the 90s or 2000s, I either own it, have owned it, or will own it in the not-too-distant future. If it's exotic, I'm not really that interested, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems to us that there are a few other people who have this sort of obsession of cars of that era. So we thought, you know, our inane WhatsApp witterings that we have every day, we'd kind of turn into a podcast and see if anybody cares enough to listen about them.
The name that we came up with is Clangers. A clanger being a car that falls into that awkward gap between being a classic and a banger. So it's therefore a clanger. Describes pretty much everything that I own, certainly.
And I feel duty-bound at this point to say that we're nothing to do with animated space creatures. So apologies if you were hoping to hear about penny whistles or knitted rodents or even the soup dragon. So yes, it's nothing to do with them. It's to do with classic bangers and our obsession with them.
Now, I think it's probably good to start off with finding out what Craig has bought this week, because there will be something. There's at least one car every week, sometimes several cars. So have you been buying?
I actually haven't done a purchase this week. That will all change tomorrow. So you know, I'm not sort of losing my touch, as it were. But tomorrow afternoon, I will be picking up a Mark I Peugeot 106 from London, where the owner, she's had it from new, and she's got sick of paying £12.50 every time she nips to Tesco, so she's reluctantly parting with the 106 that she's owned since 1994. So it's a bit sad, really. And then the other car that I bought fairly recently was a direct rival to the 106 in many ways, and that's a 1992 Nissan Micra K11.
Oh, 92.
K-Reg.
That's very early, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, I do like a K11. It's one of my obsessions, one of my sort of favourite cars. I think, you know, it's things you grow up with and things your mum's had or your dad's had. That's the kind of obsession I think that people have now. If you go to like the Festival of the Unexceptional or something, that's what everyone says about those sorts of cars, which to some people are just rubbish. But to us, it was great, wasn't it? I mean, they were all like our cars of the year and those sorts of things. I think that the K11 for me, my mum had two. One lasted till it was 120,000 miles, an express fleet car. The one before that, she only sold because one of her friends needed a car and she knew it was a good one. But there used to be these sort of situations where if you were a sort of lady of a certain age, you would just ask for recommendations of cars, and people would go, these Micras, they're great. And so I went round to see my mum once, and there were 6 Micras parked outside the house just because all her friends had bought them on like recommendation, word of mouth.
Or she'd ordered a load of curries, one or the other.
Yeah, well, that's the sad thing, isn't it? They were so reliable that they've just become the default Deliveroo car, I suppose, and they just get bought for 300 quid and then driven until they die and thrown away, don't they?
Well, they do, although apparently the days of the 300 quid K11 are long gone. I was talking to the chap in my local Chili Masters not so long ago, and he's currently got the most bizarre takeaway delivery car, which is a Citroen Berlingo, and it's the first non-K11 he's had in the 18 years that we've lived in this house. And I did say, well, what's the story of the K11s then? And he said, well, I just can't get them for love nor money anymore. It's $1,000 for a good one. And I thought, well, maybe I could offer him this little white one that I've picked up from the auction, but it's a K-reg, and it's a clanger that's closer to the start of that word than the back of that word now. I think at 33 years old, it deserves to be preserved, not delivering doner kebabs. So that's the plan for that one. And to sell it, obviously, I do have a policy. Generally a 2-in 1-out policy with the cars that I buy. It should be the other way around, but I always get it wrong. And when the K11 came in, I had to make way for it by getting rid of a Citroen Xsara exclusive automatic, which is obviously a highly desirable thing. So much so that somebody gave me £600 for it.
Did exclusive have an E on the end?
It did, yes.
Yeah, I think the Vauxhalls didn't have an E on the end, so that there wasn't any like trademark infringement.
Is that right?
So, yeah.
I thought there must be a reason for it. Yeah,
that was a costing accountant who worked out it was cheaper to remove the final E. So removing the E's from the budget, they cut back hundreds of thousands of pounds. I have plenty of General Motors stories because I worked for 10 years, and some of the cost cutting and some of the disasters we lurched between were quite amusing. But yeah.
Yeah, the Xsara was an interesting car, wasn't it? I mean, there was your exclusive automatic was slightly different to the one that you had as a long-term at Auto Express, Mike.
I had the chance to have a long-term Xsara VTS, which for whatever reason landed on my desk. But my God, it was an awful car to drive. I mean, it had sort of passive rear wheel steering, so it had the most outrageous lift-off oversteer. It was terrifying, wasn't it, Tom?
Did you think that was right? That I mean, because
I don't think that car was completely straight, to be honest. It certainly wasn't straight when we handed it back, which I'll go into in a second. But yeah, I mean, I remember my first memory of that was I live fairly near Heathrow Airport, so we often used to shun the hotel the night before, so they'd get in there for 5 o'clock. So the roads were absolutely empty. And I remember there was a big roundabout just off the A316, and you turn in towards Hounslow. And I remember it was wet, but it wasn't, terribly wet. There's a roundabout. It was about 20 or 30 miles an hour. Just sort of went into it, lifted off the throttle for whatever reason. I think it was just ready to sort of flick the indicator for the junction. The whole thing came round on me, and it must have been about 30 miles an hour it happened. And I thought, well, it must have been a patch of diesel. But no, it did it again, and many times that we had that. But it was a car that we had. We were interviewing for a road tester at Auto Express, and in those days, we thought it was a great idea to take the candidates to Cheetham with Longcross Test Track, which I think is back in business now, but it used to be the stock place where all the car magazines used to go. And we tried out a motoring journalist in the car. We said, look, take this car, drive it around for 20 minutes, and then do us a road test on it when you get back. And this person took the car out, and I can't remember whether you were there, Tom, or whether you weren't, but we sort of sat in the little hut that used to be, the little Nissan hut that used to be at Cheetham, and we waited and we waited. I thought, it hasn't come round for a while. Maybe they're parked up and taking notes, about how the car is. That's very diligent of them. And then Will, who sits in the tower at Cheetham, ran down, got in his pickup truck and tore off with the flashing light on. Now, I knew we were the only people that were booked there, so that can only mean one thing. And sure enough, this journalist who we were trying out as a road tester had gone into the Snake, which is like the handling course at Cheetham, and had binned it, I think, into a manhole cover there. So the car came back in a very sorry state, even with the wheels even more at odder angles than they would have been when it was built. And and that person didn't get the job, obviously, but it's actually head of PR at one of the world's biggest car manufacturers in the UK. So it's, I will name no names. He knows who it is. But yeah, he bent the Xsara. But remarkably, Citroen tried to fix it, and it came back even more bent than when it went. And Tom, do you remember we took that car up to Paul Ripley's because. Yes. Tom and I got put on a not because we were no good, but we got sent on an advanced driving course because I think the management thought that perhaps our road testers should know how to drive a bit better. And I remember us saying to this chap, "It's a bit lively this before you get into it, just to give you a warning." And he said, "Yeah, come on, yeah." He told us he'd driven everything. There was no supercar known to man he hadn't driven or tamed. And he got to the first corner, didn't he? And this thing snapped round on him. And he said, "Oh, what did he say? It was a bit lively, this, or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
wasn't it? It was some sort of comment."
He was kind of like just, yes, you just lift off the throttle and then whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, yeah.
Flailing of hands, wipers going madly.
Because we told him it's a bit lively. We can't get to grips with this, and he just thought we were just complete amateurs. So yeah, he did exactly. Yeah, you're right. He did. He said, you turn in, you lift off, you steer it, and at that point he was just like all arms, wasn't he? Whacking with the elbow on the side window and everything. Yeah. So I don't think that car was ever. I never drove it. I never drove another one, so I have no idea whether it was a one-off. But I think they were vicious things, weren't they?
It's almost as though like they put the tyres on the wrong side or something, wasn't it? It was really odd.
I can tell you there was no such shenanigans with the 1.8 automatic that I had. I mean, trying to get it onto a roundabout without getting taken out by oncoming traffic would have been difficult enough. It's funny you mentioned the Paul Ripley driving thing, because I did it a couple of years after you guys, because obviously I joined Auto Express a couple of years later. And a few memories from doing that course, but the one memory that really stands out, it was a BMW E46 330 with a manual gearbox, so it's a cracking car. And drove it up to Paul Ripley's, and the first thing he does is like an assessment drive with you, whether it's the same for you, where he sits in the passenger seat, and then basically at the end of it he tells you what a crap driver you are and how you're going to improve. And we'd been out in the car for about 20 minutes, and we pulled over to a lay-by, and he said to me, "You drive a Land Rover, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." "How do you know?" And he says, "Well, you're a bit harsh with your gear changes." Sure enough, I had a Series 3. So, yeah, probably a lot of the cars I drove for work were automatic because I was creeping in and out of London every day. And obviously I get let loose in this BMW and I'm smashing through the gears like it's a Series 3 Land Rover Safari, which was which to his disappointment.
I mean, on that subject, you had the most mental commute, didn't you, when we were working at Auto Express? Where were you commuting in from?
Yeah, well, I commuted in from Peterborough to London.
And not just like the outskirts of London. We're talking about, Oxford Street,
We're
Tottenham
talking
Court
Oxford Street, yeah.
middle of London.
On a good day, I could do it in 2.25 hours, but on a bad day, it would take me probably the rest of the week. But it was a 170-mile round trip every single day, which amazingly I got away with using press cars and a fuel card. It's a lot cheaper than taking the train, and hence why I insisted.
Yeah.
And you had a long termer, which my brother bought from you, but it had like 120,000 miles after a year, I think, and Vauxhall didn't really want it back because there was so many miles on it.
I can tell you about that car. So it was a 51 plate Astra 1.8 Elegance in full press car spec, which basically meant it had all sorts of things that no right-minded person would put on their Vauxhall Astra, such as xenon headlights, climate control, the most appalling fake wood trim you've ever seen, and various other bits and pieces that up the specs and what. I think the list price of that car was about 22 grand, and that was back in 2001. But amazingly, certainly when I checked fairly recently on the MOT website, it's still going strong.
Really?
It really is still going. Yeah, that's a 24-year-old Astra now. But I think your brother actually looked after it quite well, didn't he?
He did. He likes
his various Auto Express journalists abused it.
Yeah, it did have a fag burn.
Were you still there when the Star Mist was around?
The Star Mist predated me. It was a thing of legend. Now I joined, I think, in 2000. So I have a feeling it had not long since departed at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about, there was we had the management got fed up with nice press cars being left at airports, which quite understandable, because I think often a group test was really required, and we'd say, well, where is the so and so, and it's Chad's at the airport with it. So the idea was that we had this old banger. I can't remember what I think it used to be used for product testing. Was that right, Tom? Did it?
Yeah, it did, because it was a car that they owned, so they could put, somebody said, "Oh, we've got these new sports springs, or we've got a new alarm," then they could try it on this car. So it was awful because it was like a 1.3 Astra Mark II special edition, this Star Mist on like rally spec springs. Yeah, with normal tires and wheels, and then it would have like some locking mechanism where you had to put a key in to get the gear lever out.
It had been used for product testing immobilizers as well, so that we had to be like,
yeah, there were about 6 of them.
To start. Yeah,
and of course it just became the car that no one wanted to take. It was the real last resort car. And I think I took it once just to give it a clean and charge the battery and all that sort of thing. But I didn't do it again because it wasn't very good for my back. I think the just driving over speed bumps in that car with no suspension was enough to send you to the chiropractor.
Well, I think I sort of, quite literally left my legacy at Auto Express by doing something similar a few years later with filling the car park at Cleveland Street with the last car that people wanted to take home with them, if you recall. We did a little experiment to see if we could trade up from, I think we started with 500 quid or something, and see if we could trade it up and buy a Porsche.
God, I remember that.
Whether you recall that, we had some gems. We had a Rover 214 with no power steering, which was universally unpopular. For a short while, we had a Ford Capri, which did go down quite well. Then we had a Ford Probe, which sort of didn't. Then we had a Ford Mondeo that had an interesting experience at the Ford Press Garage that I think we'll probably save for a future pod. And then that was replaced by a Subaru Legacy 2-litre GX. So we were well on the way. We'd gone from having a car worth 500 quid to about one that was worth about $2,500 by that point. So it was all looking good, and then I got offered a job going to work for GM, going to work for Tom, strangely enough, and I left my legacy quite literally in the car park. I don't know what happened to the idea after that.
If you did that as videos now, you'd make a fortune. You were ahead of your time, Craig, with all this kind of thing. Can I just imagine there'd be sort of a viral, video thing of, keep trading up and everything. It was wasted on half a column at Auto Express, whatever we did with it. So yeah, it's like the one where when you bought the car to drive to, where was it? Newcastle and back, cheaper than the train.
Ah, yeah, that one? This was the railfare special, wasn't it? To work out if you could actually drive from London King's Cross to Newcastle in a car for less than the price of a train ticket for two people, and that included buying the car, taxing it, and insuring it. Yeah. It was a Ford Sierra that came out of British Car Auctions in Peterborough, which is now closed down. And I bought it for the princely sum of 30 quid plus £12.50 in buyer's fees. So we had £42.50 worth of Ford Sierra. We put it on day insurance. We taxed it for a month. We drove it to Newcastle and back. Used a fair bit of oil, but apart from that, nothing really went wrong with it. And then it made its way back into London, and I think eventually we all signed it and gave it to a colleague as a leaving card, didn't we?
It was James Mills's leaving present. Yeah, I seem to remember that.
But do you remember? Do you remember the BBC News picked up the story and thought it was great, so I wanted to come down and film with it. We'd all signed this car and drawn like cock and balls on it. And had to rapidly clean it off.
Trying to clean it off. Yeah,
I was watching the 6 o'clock news on BBC the following. I think it was that evening. And the car drove off into the sunset, and you could see written on the boot lid, "Foot down, arse out, Millsy."
Now, we thought that we'd have one car as the spotlight car in each episode, and we've kind of steered away from it a bit. So should we steer back?
We steered away. We're like the Xsara VTS. It snapped away from us, didn't it? It's time to get it back.
It's time to get it back. So we should talk about the Micra K11 again, because Craig, you don't just have one.
No, I don't. I actually have two K11s. I've owned 5, and I've got 2. And the first one was subject to an almost concourse restoration, and the only reason it hasn't been to any shows or events or anything like that is that no sooner had I had it completely repainted and refurbished than it decided to reward me by the fuel pump packing up. And typically, the fuel pump on the very, very early K11s was only fitted to them for the first 9 months of production before they changed the part number. So I have been looking for a fuel pump now for about 1.5 years, 2 years. Ironically, I've got one, but it's attached to another car that I don't want to scrap. So the plan was that if the K-Reg one was actually a bit of a shed, I'd at least have a fuel system I could steal. It's far too good for that, and it's far too interesting for that, even though it's nowhere near as nice as the other. But the other one I've got has a fantastic story. And it goes back to 2019, where I was working for a magazine that sadly became a victim of COVID. It was a magazine called Retro Cars. And it was all about cars that we're referring to here as clangers. And I think perhaps this format is a bit more modern and a bit more sensible than a print magazine because it's far cheaper to produce. But we bought it as a project car for that magazine. And it was a K11 that had sat in somebody's back garden in Letchworth for, I think, 14 years. And speaking to the guy, it turned out that the owner had won the car in a competition on Capital Radio. And it was a Nissan Micra Capital. It had Capital Radio 95.8 stickers in the back window. And they gave 100 of them away on the radio show. It was like one a day for 3 months or something. And this guy won one of them. And it was the only new car he'd ever had. And then the old boy died, and the car sat in the garden. Then his wife died, and then the car was sold on by the son. So that was the story. And I went down to pick it up. I had a Nissan Cabstar recovery truck with a winch on the back.
Of course you did.
Just as I got there, the winch had packed up. So I was like, well, what are we going to do? I've got this Nissan Micra that's been sitting in a hedge. I had brambles through the tyres. The tyres were all shredded to bits. And 14 years it sat in a hedge, and I had no winch. So I was like, I'm going to have to duck out of this, unfortunately, because it was such a lovely story. But I thought, well, we might as well just see what happens if I throw the jump pack on it. And because it's a Nissan Micra K11, even though it was a 14-year-old petrol that had been sitting in a hedge, it cranked and cranked, and after about 20 seconds of cranking, it fired up. So I drove it onto the recovery truck. That car wanted to live. That sealed its future. And it came back to me. I spent a lot of money having it painted and having everything done to it. And it's really not far off. I just need to get this fuel system done. And I will, because it's a superb, absolutely immaculate K11. And one day its story will be told to the world. But for now, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm hoping to take it to the Festival of the Unexceptional, either next year or the year after.
I do remember you kind of spending more and more money on it, and you'd make one bit, you'd like paint the wheels or something, and then you're like, well, the wheels look so good now, it makes the rest of the car look crap, so I'm going to have to paint this, and I'm going to have to do this, and eventually it's like a brand new Micra. It's a very nice thing if you like K11s.
Well, we all like K11s, don't we?
Well, we all do. What do we think of the CVT? That's a controversial part of it.
I am a bit of a fan of CVT gearboxes, and I know that's a really unfashionable thing to say as an automotive journalist, but I've always quite liked them. I like the fact that they're running at their sort of peak power output at all times, and I actually quite like the fact that they always sound like they're screaming their tits off and trying to keep up with traffic, but I don't know, there's something really smooth and entertaining about driving a CVT.
I think they were at their best in the K11, I think, CVTs.
I must have driven one. I don't remember it that well. I do remember that. Conversely, I do remember the manual gearbox being lovely because when K11 first came out, I was editor of a magazine called Mini World, which naturally for a man who's 6'5" to run on a magazine about the classic Mini. And I think after about 3 years, I was slightly fed up of driving Mini, so I hatched this idea of doing a group test with a Mini versus its rivals. So we had to plead to all these kind of manufacturers who obviously never heard from us in the past to get. So I think I got a Peugeot 106 and I got a Micra as well. We took that and a Mini off to Wales for a few days, and it was great. I was living the dream. I'd seen all these group tests in car and performance car and everything, and I thought, well, I'd love to do that. So I only managed to concoct this plan to do it. And I remember driving those cars. The Mini was old and crap, as you'd expect. And the 106 was what didn't feel a heck of a lot better than my mum's Talbot Samba, in terms of the gearbox and everything. And there's obviously an ancient engine in that 106, wasn't it? But the Micra just felt like a car that was like from 20 years in the future. It had this lovely, I just remember my abiding memory of that car was everything was in the right place. All the throttle, everything, it was properly weighted. The gearbox felt really good from memory. It just kind of, it sort of notched. It went through all the gears beautifully. It was smooth. It was just a really easy car to drive. And the 106 had a terrible driving position, certainly for me anyway. Everything was kind of offset, and it was really, the brakes were grabby. It wasn't a particularly enjoyable car to drive. But that Micra, I think I drove it back all the way from Wales, and I just thought, this is great. This is, and it did kind of set that benchmark, because everything else that was in the super mini city car sector at that point was just old engines that had been around for 20 years. They didn't put any effort into them. There was, very few cars had power steering back then. It just felt, really ahead of the game. So, I don't remember the CVT, but I remember the manual being absolutely cracking.
I've been driving this K-Reg one around quite a bit since I picked it up, and it's a very scruffy. It's a London car. It's covered in dents, but it's really solid. It's never been welded, and it's one of the very first K11s. in the UK. So 1.0 LX, which was the mid spec. I dread to think what the basic one was like, because this is pretty basic as it comes. But it only has 45 brake horsepower. But it's a really sweet 16 valve engine. And it doesn't feel like it only has 45 bhp. You know, I've been around the bypass near my house quite a lot, and it just encourages you to squeeze all the revs out of it and just keep on going. It's a great little car to drive. It's so entertaining. And you think now that's 33 years old. It's not new technology anymore, is it?
No.
The only one I've kind of bought, and not for myself, is I used to work for Nissan, and one of the things I had to do was look after the heritage fleet, and they had T40Zs and things like that, but they also had a K11 Micra. But for me, it was too old, too new rather. It was like one of the facelift cars, and it had 1,500 miles on it, and that sort of very 90s, very bright upholstery that looked like a kind of someone had done a confetti bomb inside. But I wanted a really early one. So I was talking to one of the other guys who worked there. He says, "Oh, my Aunt Betty's got one of those. It's got 10,000 miles on it, though. Would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So we did a swap. We gave his Aunt Betty the newer one with 3,000 miles, which is what she wanted, because she just wanted a Micra. That's what she was used to. That's what she loved. But she was prepared to swap it for this virtually brand new car that had been kept in like one of those Carcoon air capsule things. So it was perfect. So we got her car, and it needed a couple of little bits doing on it, but that hopefully is still in their collection. I might go and see if I can borrow it sometime, because that was beautiful. A really nice early one on those steel wheels. You know, when if you pull off the hubcaps off your LX, Craig, they're like those round holed steel wheels with the plastic caps in the center. That's the early Micra at its purest. I wanted that early grille.
Those wheels, but I know you want me to pull the hubcaps off the K-Reg one anyway, because they're hideous aftermarket jobs, which again I think is probably a topic for another one of these pods, where we can talk about the things that people shouldn't put on their cars and the things that people should.
I hate to drag it back to pounds, shillings, and pence, but what values are we talking about now for K11 Micras? What sort of prices?
Well, I say, according to the guy at my local takeaway, you can't get a decent one for less than £1,000. I paid a lot less for the one that I bought, but that's because it was in the We Buy Any Car section at British Car Auctions in Enfield. And I think the car's one previous owner, a gentleman called Rupert, who I've done some research, because you always get the old V5, and I'm nosy. So I tried to find out who he was, and so far as I can establish, he was an orchestra conductor who lived in Wimbledon. It's obviously quite a posh part of London. And the car, if you go on Google Maps, is parked down this row of old mews houses. All his neighbours have got Bentleys, and there's this little white Micra at the end. But if it is the same guy, then he passed away earlier this year. So I suspect that it was his car, and the family have just not known what to do with it and thrown it into We Buy Any Car. And now here it is, sitting outside my house at the moment, actually.
Is there a section then in British Car? Because this is all news to me, because, I think, full disclosure here, you two buy old stuff like that, and I kind of, watch on and get the entertainment out of you enjoying it rather than actually spending my own money. I lose enough money on new cars. I don't need to lose money on old cars as well. But so yeah, is there really, when you go to British Car Auctions, is there like a section for when you said there was a We Buy Any Car section? Can you spot them?
Yeah, you can spot them from a mile off. So they have this thing called UK Car Group, which is their own company, because British Car Auctions own We Buy Any Car.
Yes.
The UK Car Group No Reserve is basically everything that's gone to We Buy Any Car to be got rid of. Then the real tactic is spotting the cars that previously belonged to dead people. Tom and I have spoken about this a number of occasions. We've actually got a dead list, haven't we, to spot the cars. So shall we go through those things one at a time? And you do one, then I'll do the other. And
Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go first. The radio is nearly always tuned into either Radio 4 or Classic FM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then there is the air conditioning on cars which are so equipped is normally set to the Fahrenheit setting rather than the centigrade setting.
Another giveaway is if the car has more than half a tank of petrol, because nobody trades in a car with no fuel in it. With half a tank of petrol in it. You use up what you've paid for before you chop the car in. So if a car's got low fuel, then chances are the owner's still alive. If there's half a tank, the car's either broken or the owner's dead.
They've been taken before their time and not had the chance to use that half a tank. Yeah, okay. This is all logical stuff. Yeah.
The Road Atlas, that's always a good one. If there's a Road Atlas in the back somewhere.
Yeah. Quite often you'll find there's only one key because the owner's passed away and the other key was in a bedside drawer or a sideboard cabinet or something and got taken away by the house clearance people.
This is all quite sad.
Recovery company badges or stickers, they're always another
National
one.
Trust sticker.
An AA badge.
Yeah. National Trust sticker.
Um,
Doesn't that mean something else though, Mike? National Trust sticker.
Apparently so. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I think
stickers do have it's a bit like having pampas grass on your front lawn. Apparently.
I think it depends
on that note. It's veering off on a tangent, but it's quite an amusing tangent. I've had two discoveries in second-hand cars that I've bought. One was a Peugeot 406 that I acquired, and I bought this privately. And it was only when I got home and was going through the paperwork that came with the car that I found a note tucked into the handbook by the previous owner, and it said, "We are swingers," with his phone number underneath it.
Oh,
okay.
So yeah, that was my pampas grass moment with used cars. And then I bought a yellow Renault Megane convertible, and tucked away in the spare wheel well were some an interesting little bottle of chemicals and some sex toys. So yeah, they're my two interesting finds. But that's these things happen when you buy old cars from unknown sources.
So are we going to do some buying advice for the Micra K11 since we've swerved off again? Then what should you look for?
And, ending with on that bombshell, like three middle-aged men doing a TV program about cars, isn't it?
So what, rust? I suppose that's the big killer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not that bad, but the back of the sills tend to disappear, and the radiator, the cross member under the radiator, is the other vulnerable bit of them. But they're not too bad, really. If you want to buy a K11, then the bodywork could be a lot worse compared to a lot of their contemporaries.
Yeah, and lots of young people like them these days, don't they? First of all, they're unexceptional. They're all the 20-somethings because I think they're insurable and quite good fun, and you can make them look quite funky.
That whole era of 90s super minis is really undergoing something of a bit of a boom in popularity, because I think there's a lot of younger drivers who they're really liking this sort of analog driving experience in an increasingly digital world. It takes them away from being permanently connected. Car manufacturers, modern car manufacturers, are filling our cars full of tech to make sure that you can never escape being connected. You're permanently online. But actually, you get behind the wheel of your K11 or your Vauxhall Corsa B or your Fiat Punto or whatever, and for that brief hour in which you're in the car, you're disconnected from the world. And for somebody of that generation, it's the only chance they actually get to be like that.
It's true. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, when you said, you surprised me when you said you had been looking for a fuel pump for a year. I don't know. I just kind of assumed that they made so bloody many of them that there would be loads of parts for it. Or is it just you being tight, you don't want to pay for a new one or something?
So I have worked out what's going on here. And the K11, when it first came to the market, it was the second Nissan to be built in the UK, behind the Bluebird that was the first one built at the Sunderland factory. And it was sold for a year before it came to the UK as the Nissan March, as it was called, over in Japan. And for the UK production, they sourced the fuel pumps, the fuel pipes for that car from a local parts supplier. But they didn't come on stream until the car had been in production for a few months. So the very, very first cars had these fuel pumps that were imported from Japan. And they're a little bit more expensive. And unfortunately, they're integrated into the fuel tank. So you can't just get an aftermarket fuel pump and make it work. You have to get the right one. So you can actually get them from Japan. And it's one of those where the parts aren't very expensive, but the cost of shipping is ridiculous. So it's a question of, I could get one for a couple of £100. And maybe I just should do it because I've spent that much on the car already. But I'm also a bit of a womble, and I like to make use of things that other people are getting rid of and find cheap ways of getting around things. And I've got other cars to use. So partly the thrill of the chase, really. I mean, it's on my eBay search list and I'm looking for one all the time. Maybe I'll get lucky.
Who knew?
Maybe.
Well, we should probably wrap it up, shouldn't we? We've been wittering on for hours. And we need to leave something for the proper first edition.
By the time this is edited down, it'd probably be a cozy 10 minutes. So I won't worry too much about it, Tom. Once we've got rid of all the bits. No, it's good.
Well, it's been nice chatting, and I hope everybody out there has not fallen asleep yet. And if you like it, let us know, and we'll do it again.
If you don't like it, well, let us know, I suppose, and we won't.
And if you have any cars that you would like us to cover as well, that would be another thing.
Yeah, please do let us know. Anything from sort of mid-90s to mid-2000s, we've probably had different experiences of, and either we'll probably have different views upon them as well. So, yeah.
Should we tease what car we're going to do next? I mean, we haven't decided yet, but we could probably decide on one now, couldn't we?
Why don't we all nominate one, and then we can see of the 4 people that listen to this, which one is the most popular.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. Mike, do you want to go first? What are you going to nominate?
I'm gonna nominate the Ford Mondeo.
Oh, interesting. We've got some stories about those.
Okay.
I'm going to say Peugeot 206.
Okay.
Ironically, I was going to say Peugeot 206 as well, because I think Tom and I both have stories about them.
So do I. I've had one.
Well, in that case, shall we just suck it off and do the 206 next time, and then we can throw it to a further time after that?
Nuts to the Mondeo. Let's do
nuts to the Mondeo. We'll do 206 next time, and then we might even have some real listeners who can tell us what to talk about next.
Yep.
All right. Well, speak to you soon, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.